What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Spyderco Techno 2. This is a very interesting little knife, and one that I've actually had my eye on for quite a while. Really cool, really happy to finally have my hands on it, and really excited to talk about it. Let's go ahead and do some measurements here real quick. Looks like the overall length is coming in at just over 6 inches, maybe, yeah, just barely over 6 inches, maybe 6 and an eighth. And it looks like the blade is going to come in at maybe just shy of 2 3/4, where the cutting edge is going to be about 2.5 inches. So, really cool size there. Let's get a weight real quick with the official Metal Complex channel scale that I love using. Techno 2 coming in at 3.5, sorry, the time on my phone is covering that up, 3.56 ounces. So it's a little knife, doesn't weigh very much, but as far as the size goes, a lot of people will say, that that's fairly heavy for a knife of this size. Pretty interesting here. I never handled the Techno 1, I guess, or the Techno is what you would call it. And so I'm not I'm not super informed on the changes and the reasons for the changes or the specifics of it. I mean, I have the pamphlet that came with the Techno 2, and I kind of just want to talk about the Techno 2 itself and my thoughts on it. So for those of you who are interested in, the history of it and the changes and things, I invite you to pause the video and give this a quick read there. I hope my fingers are completely out of the way. But anyways, let's move on into some size comparisons here. I had a request to do more size comparisons with my Microtech SOCOM Elite. I will do that every now and then, no problem. The Microtech SOCOM Elite is a massive knife coming in at about 9.1 inches overall. Next up, a much more common knife size comparison. We've got the Ontario Rat Model 1 coming in at 8.6 inches overall. And how about the Paramilitary 2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall? How about the Benchmade Griptilian coming in at 8 inches overall? And last but not least, how about the Spyderco Delica coming in at, is it 7 inches overall? I've been saying that, but truthfully, I can't remember. Let's measure it to be sure, so that I don't look like a goof on camera. Yeah, it's about 7 inches. So Spyderco Delica coming in at 7 inches. So this is a small knife. And here lately, I have this intrigue that's been developed by these smaller knives, especially smaller knives that have a sheep's foot style blade. And I don't know exactly why I'm all of a sudden interested in sheep's foot blades. I have so many drop point blades. In fact, that's pretty much all I have. I have just done the same thing for so long. And if it's not a drop point, it's very similar. I've done the same thing for so long. I think subconsciously I might just be looking for something different. But I appreciate the idea, behind the sheep's foot style blade. You have a better tip strength, I think, ideally. Well, in some situations. This is a fairly thick stock coming in at, I'm going to guess, it's probably a little thinner than the PM2. It's pretty similar. Yeah, it's a little bit thinner than the PM2, but you can see there, look at the tip. This style blade, this sheep's foot, it's not quite a sheep's foot if you read that pamphlet there. But you have some incredible tip strength on a little knife. I'm sure you also noticed that finish there. We'll talk about that. Let's go ahead and do the paper cut test. New thing I'm going to say before each paper cut test. There was a commenter that pointed something out, and I'm very appreciative of that. The paper cut test is not a definitive cutting test. It's just me giving my audience a base idea of the resistance on paper or other thin materials. And it's a good way to demonstrate its basic cutting performance without having to go through and do a whole wood and rubber and cardboard test. So here it is on paper. Actually, that's substantially better than I thought it was going to do. Substantially better. That felt like such a chunky blade, and I thought that thing is just going to, you know, it's just going to complain all the way through that paper. It's not going to do it. But yeah, wow, that actually cuts really well. You know, it's not really that thick of a stock. I guess maybe the reason I thought that is because it's such a stubby little knife. So I thought, it's not really going to cut that well. But it's got good belly, and it wanted to go through the paper just fine. It's not the sliciest thing in the world. It's going to be not quite as, you know, definitely not as slicey as a PM2, not quite as slicey as a Griptilian. I would say it's right behind the Benchmade Griptilian, maybe a half step or so. You have a stunning finish on this thing. You can actually see the reflectivity there, my phone and part of my neck there, but it's like a reflective stonewash. And if I could only have one finish, I think I said this in another video. Of course, I have fingerprints on this. If I could only have one finish, one very specific finish for the rest of my life, it would be the stonewash finish on this Techno. I honestly like that better than the stonewash finish on my Hinderer and on my Chris Reeve, which are two of my favorite stonewashings ever. And yes, it is actually, in my opinion, this is a better looking stonewash. There's more reflectivity in it, but you still have that, you know, the little the graininess, you know, of a stonewash. It's not perfectly reflective, but man, that's good. This is CTS XHP steel, which is an extremely premium steel, very capable. In my minimal research, which again, not a metallurgist, not a professional anything, just a dude with a camera and a tripod and some knives, and the power of the internet. CTS XHP is a very stainless steel with very good edge retention and decent toughness. It's essentially taking the properties of S30V and increasing the edge retention, maintaining the corrosion resistance, and slightly reducing the toughness. Though, I gotta say, you know, with the edge geometry the way that it is, it being a little bit thicker behind the edge than a lot of little teeny tiny slicey knives in this same size range, I don't think you're going to have to worry about toughness. I think that this knife is going to be ultra tough. And CTS XHP, for the most part, is like a universally appreciated steel. You'll be hard-pressed to find. It's kind of like M390. You're not going to go online and find a lot of people going, I hate XHP. It's not a good... I mean, like, XHP is kind of one of the popular kids of the knife world. And I think for good reason. You know, there's a good reason that you see it on really high-end production knives, and there's a reason you see it on custom knives. Not only is it a good performer, but it takes an excellent finish. David's Bugatti and his girlfriend's Mandera are both CTS XHP. Those are custom knives, and they have a beautiful mirror finish on them. Just absolutely perfect. Yes, the Mandera is coming, I promise. Anyways, moving down. Actually, you know, you've got the thumb hole deployment method, as is per usual with every Spyderco, or almost every Spyderco, I'd imagine. It's not really a flicky Spyderco. You can do it, but let me tell you, that's not like I didn't pick this up and just, you know, do that the first time. Like, I had to work at it. You got to work at your angle and get around this mess right here. And because the cutout is only on this side, this one's lipped. It is... I can't do it. Maybe there's somebody out there who's better than me, but I cannot get that to reverse flick. Ricky, I can see you, you know... Actually, you handled this. Ricky, I want to know, in the comment section, did you manage to reverse flick this? He's the reverse flick god. He can reverse flick anything. I'd be very interested to know. We did not discuss that. Anyways, it is fairly easy to deploy in a normal fashion, which is probably how I would deploy it. There's plenty of a cutout, and the hole is in a good place. Moving on down to the scales here, we do have 6AL4V titanium for the scales. The scales actually have sort of a matte finish to them, which adds a nice contrast to the reflective nature of the blade. This is probably an accidental face reveal, that's fine. but we've got, you know, the very hyper reflectivity of the blade in contrast with this sort of working finish. And it's really nice. I like that. I appreciate a good contrast there for reflectivity. You know, my Hinderer has like the stonewashed blade and the equally stonewashed and equally reflective scales. And I like that too, but, you know, sometimes I appreciate, you know, mixing it up. It's when it's kind of bland that I don't really like it. I don't like working finish on working finish, you know? It's almost like I want the hyper reflectivity of the stonewash in contrast with the working finish, or I just want it all stonewashed. That's just me though. Moving the knife ever so slightly this way, you'll be able to see we have some beautiful emerald green anodized titanium standoffs. I love these. I think these are awesome, and it creates another level of contrast that is just amazing on this knife. It looks so beautiful all the way around. I love that. I know some people aren't going to like it, but I'm a huge fan of that. Looking inside there, you can see this is completely unmilled, solid titanium. Moving around to the back side here. We didn't talk about the oversized, I don't think. Did we talk about the oversized button head hardware? I had to do another version of the second part of this video because the sun started coming in and it made it look funny. We've got oversized button head hardware. Really, really nice. Adjustable from both sides of the pivot. I don't know if the pivot's D-shaped. I don't know if that's going to give you trouble on disassembly. I'm not going to try and take this apart. We've got the wire clip here, which let's talk about that real quick. So I've never talked about the wire clip because I've never really handled it. Now that I've got it in person, here's my thoughts on it. I think it's a perfect design for somebody looking for a minimalist thing to hold a knife onto your pants. It seems to be plenty strong. It carries plenty deep. Functionally, it's perfect, and that's why so many people like it. Visually, I hate it. It looks like a paper clip. That's just my thought. If you don't mind how it looks visually, then you'll have no issue with that whatsoever. I don't like that it looks like a paper clip, but that's just me, and you don't have to listen to me. It is of course, a frame lock here, and the frame lock itself has no over travel stop and no insert, which is fine because the positioning of your fingers is actually going to keep you from overextending it naturally. It does lock up. It looks to be really late here, but it's actually only about 50%. You can see the mark right there. It's only about 50% or maybe even a little bit less. So that's just a visual thing. Really, really cool. Let's talk about ergonomics because that is truthfully the only category that I'm going to complain about. This is a small knife. So if you've got medium, large, or large hands or extra large hands, you are not going to be able to get 4 fingers around this thing. You can force it, but even then you're really kind of risking running your finger up on the blade. So that's kind of a bummer with me. It's really the only thing that I personally can complain. Well, there's one other thing, but this is one of the only things that I can complain about. If you've got medium or small hands, you're gonna love this knife. And you know what? Even if you do have medium, large, or large hands, you know, a lot of people don't really care about not being able to get all of their fingers around the handle of a knife. It is comfortable to hold. It doesn't feel like there's any insane hot spots or anything like that. There's some nice non-aggressive jimping up top. It's not aggressive, but it is functional. Let me see if I can get that up there. Yeah, there we go. Definitely is functional. You can mount the clip on the right or left-handed side. It's going to be tip up only. Now, for lefties, though, you're not going to be able to open. Yeah, that's kind of, well, but actually, okay, so lefties can reverse flick it because of the position of the cutout here. So that's kind of neat. So lefties, you're going to be able to reverse flick it. You're going to have to deal with the frame lock being on a right-handed setup. Righties, you get to deal with the frame lock being in the right place for you, but you are not going to be able to reverse flick this guy. And I know there's people accepting that challenge right now and going, I could do that. That guy doesn't know what he's talking about. That's fine. It's just going to be really, really difficult. But that's kind of funny that you're able to do that on the left-handed side. So interesting. This is a really, really awesome knife. We're getting a little bit of a glare there from the sun. Sorry. Really, really awesome knife. I love this knife, despite it not being a knife that you can get your whole hand around. For ergonomics, materials, for the design, the aesthetics, everything. And by the way, fit and finish is spot on this guy. We've got perfect centering. Let's see if we can focus. Yeah, perfect centering. Lockup is very solid, no play, up, down, left, or right. Very smooth, no lock stick, just beautiful. And that's something that I've now, having handled 2 knives from the Taichung, Taiwan factory plant. Somebody corrected me on that the other day. Taichung, Taiwan. I am now going to expect from that factory. And I've heard that very often for a long period of time, so I'm glad I could finally experience this for myself and jump on that bandwagon. Carry philosophy on this guy. If you're looking for a light, well, let me put it this way. If you're looking for a small EDC knife that gives you the feeling of preparedness of a much larger or much tougher feeling knife, this is a great option. This knife has nice thick slabs of titanium that aren't overbearing and don't create a massive footprint in your pocket. At 3.5 ounces, if you subscribe to that rule about, like, you know, how much cutting edge am I getting per ounce? I don't care. The total weight of the knife is 3.5 ounces. That's not very much weight. So, you know, the fact that this is a nice little knife that has increased toughness in my, just from what I'm experiencing handling it and kind of playing around with it, I think that there's a nice payout there, regardless of the fact that you lose some cutting edge versus a larger knife. I kind of go out every day, you know, and put a knife in my pocket with a feeling of, like, you know, I want to be prepared for anything life could reasonably throw at me. My own biases and preferences, you know, come into play. And some days I find a justification for knives like the SOCOM Elite, which is kind of ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, but I love that knife, you know. But the Techno 2 is a knife that I could justify and feel good about, have that pride of having something premium in my pocket, having something fun to play with and cool, and something I feel like could absolutely get any job done that life would throw at me, most likely. But it's a small knife, you know, it creates a small footprint. So that's really cool. One last thing, the only other negative for this knife. This knife costs $215. That is a chunk of change. Yes, it's CTS XHP. Yes, it's titanium. Yes, the finish is really nice on it. Once a finish, another finish I'm always feeling compared to clean it off. This is a nice knife. It's made very well. $215 is a lot of money to choke down. You really got to want this knife to spend $215 on it. Whether or not it's worth it, I can't really say. If you love this knife, you agree with everything that I've said, and I've compelled you to buy it, and you feel like it'll make you happy if you do, then buy it. If you know, I don't know, if you have spent, like, I don't know, if you let me put it this way. If $160 or $150 for a knife, like maybe the let's talk about knives like the Paramilitary 2 or the Benchmade Griptilian. If the Benchmade Griptilian, if between the S110V version of the Paramilitary 2 or the 20CV version of the G10 Griptilian, somewhere in there makes you uncomfortable in that price range for the materials that you're getting, like if you're starting to teeter on, am I really getting my money's worth? This is probably not the knife for you. But if those knives bring you joy and many others, and maybe you're like me and you spent way more money on knives that probably, you know, aren't completely justified, then yeah, you're gonna have a good time with this, and it's gonna treat you really well for a long time. This knife is absolutely gonna go on my most recommended EDC knives list, despite the price and despite it having an ergonomic situation where you can't really get 4 fingers all the way around the handle. So in conclusion, yes, I recommend this knife if you can financially justify it. Go out there and get one for yourself. It's really cool. But that's going to be pretty much it for today, guys. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. And if you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So please check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, then please subscribe to my channel because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.